We continue now at the top of Daf Pei Beis and Meseches Nedarim. This is Nedarim Daf 82b. And the previous summit, the Gemara was asking a question on Shmuel from our Mishnah. Shmuel had said that let's say a woman makes a neder, and in the neder she prohibits only deriving benefit from a particular individual. So that's enough to be considered a neder of Inoi Nefesh, and the husband annuls such a vow. And the problem is that our Mishnah says, let's say a woman makes a neder, she's not going to get benefit from a particular store. So there it says, since she can get from a different store, so then the husband is not allowed to annul the vow, because that's not considered to be Inoi Nefesh if there are other options available. And so the Gemara now answers, Umas Nisan Rabbi Yossi. The answer is that really our Mishnah happens to follow the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, and that's not a question against Shmuel. The Amar Rav Huna, because Rav Huna said, Kule Pirkin Rabbi Yossi, our entire parak is Rabbi Yossi. Umayin Yachol Lahafer, and therefore what does the Mishnah mean when it says the husband cannot annul the vow, let's say in the case of the store where she forbids the fruits of a particular store, Mishum Inoi Nefesh, because in general, Rabbi Yossi holds, he has a more restrictive definition, and he holds these Nedarim are not considered to be Nedarim of Inoi Nefesh. That's particular to Rabbi Yossi's opinion. It's not the Rabbanan's opinion. Shmuel was talking according to the Rabbanan. Aval Mefer Nedarim Shebeino Leveina, but even Rabbi Yossi would agree that he can annul the vow in as much as it is a neder that affects the relationship. Rabbi Yossi was just saying it's not considered a neder of Inoi Nefesh. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says, Nodra mishteki karos. Let's say she takes a neder not to have two particular loaves of bread. Biachas misano v'achas ein misan. In one of them, it creates affliction for her. The other one does not create affliction for her. We'll take a look at the second explanation of the Mefarish. V'istu Mefarish, some understand this Gemara to mean as follows. Biachas misana sha'achas pasnikia v'tova. One of the pieces of bread is a good piece of bread, so not eating that piece of bread, that's an affliction. V'meino chelos mimeno iko inu. If she doesn't eat from it, there's affliction. U'viachas eina misana, but the other piece of bread, the fact that she doesn't eat it doesn't cause any affliction. She pasubin, it's a low quality bread. Ve'ena chosheshes mimeno, she doesn't want to eat it anyway. V'laki inu, there's no affliction in lo tochlen if she doesn't eat it. Afilu hachi muteres k'shemefer l'misana. Nevertheless, when the husband annuls the vow that was the vow of affliction, so the other one as well is going to be annulled. That's what the Gemara over here says. Again, Nodar mishteki karos, biachas misano v'achas ein misano, mitoch shu mefer l'misana, since once he annuls the vow which is a vow of affliction, mefer l'she'eno misana, the vow which is a vow that is not a vow of affliction, that also is going to be annulled. But Ravasi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, but Ravasi says that Rabbi Yochanan says, mefer l'misana, he can annul the vow of affliction, ve'ein mefer l'she'en misana, but he cannot annul the vow that is not of affliction. And the Gemara continues, V'ika Diamri, there are those that have the following version of the above. Bo'em Yinei Ravasi mi Rabbi Yochanan, that Ravasi asked Rabbi Yochanan the following question, Nodra mishteki karos, let's say she takes a neder from two loaves, Biachas misano v'achas ein misane, one of them is affliction, one of them is a neder. That's not a neder of affliction. Mahu, what's the halacha? And in this version, Amar Le, he said to him, he responded, Mefer l'misana, he can annul the vow that's a vow of affliction, V'ein mefer l'shein misana, but he cannot annul the vow that is not a vow of affliction. And the Mefarish explains, Ve'ein mefer l'she'ena misana, the portion of the vow that is not affliction, that will not be annulled, de'eno muvar b'hafaras ha'acheres, meaning to say that portion of the vow will not be annulled with the annulment of the other portion of the vow that is a vow of affliction. And the Mefarish continues, V'yachzer v'yafer lo yefsher. Now to go ahead and again try to annul the vow, just to annul that portion that's not the vow of affliction, that's not possible. Because that portion of the vow, it's not a neder of inoi nefesh, it's not a neder of affliction, and it doesn't represent anything in terms of their relationship, and therefore again, that portion of the vow is not annulled with the annulment of the other portion of the vow, which is the vow of affliction, and it can't be annulled on its own as well. And the Mefarish continues, V'ikash, if you'll ask as follows, Hakaimalon neder shehuter miksasor huter kulo. We've established that if you have a neder that part of it is undone, so the whole thing is undone. So here, if you undid the neder on one loaf, shouldn't that automatically undo the neder on the other loaf? And the Mefarish says, Hani mili b'hatoras chacham da'adifa. That's only true when you're talking about undoing the neder with a chacham, because that's a better kind of undoing of the neder. In a sense, that goes back to the original neder and undoes it from the beginning. Aval b'hafaras balva, when it comes to the annulment of the husband, and the Rishonim say the difference is again that by the husband's annulment, it's mikanul haba, it's just going forward that it's annulled. So lo amrinan hachi, then we don't say that. We just say that portion is going to be annulled, but the other portion will not. And the Gemara continues, Eisvei, we have a question from a Mishnah in Nazir. Ha'isha shenadra ben Nazir, let's say a woman became a Nazira. V'aisa shosa yayin u'metavel amesim, and she drank wine, and she became tamei meis. She violated the Nazirus, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Pei Gimel Amud Aleph.